What's your worst Tinder experience? I had been talking to a guy on Tinder. We were talking about meeting up. But there was a snowstorm the night I was going to meet him. When I told him I wanted to reschedule, he flipped out. He said he told his friends all about me and stuff like this always happened to him, and he'll never find someone. He threatened to kill himself if I didn't keep our date. We'd been talking for less than a week. Honestly, not sure if it is bad or just bizarre. But I love the story, so here we go. Met this girl. Call her D. For coffee one day. We hit it off, but both had some awkward jitters. We had plans to see each other the next weekend, but in the middle of the week she called me late at night. Almost 3 a.m. When I saw it was a girl I had met on Tinder just once, I guessed it was a booty call. So I answered it and tried to play it cool. She goes, "Hey, what are you up to tonight?" I tried to be casual and said, "No much. Just hanging out. Relaxing." Pretending I wasn't asleep 45 seconds beforehand. I was super wrong about the intentions of the phone call. Dee says, "I am about to go to the emergency room and don't want to go alone. Will you come with me? Remember, I am out of it." So I said yes. I drove to her apartment and picked up her and her roommate, surprise, and headed to the ER. Dee's roommate was the one who needed medical attention because her appendix had burst, as we found out later. I stayed there with them, half shell-shocked and half genuinely interested in what was happening. Around 5 a.m. her roommate was being examined and I had to ask the number one question on my mind. "How many people did you call before you called me?" She looked at me and said, "Oh, you're the first person I called. I figured you would say yes." Had no clue what to make of that, so I half laughed it off. And after we realized her roommate would be staying in the hospital, I took Dee home. I never heard from her again. Total ghost in the wind after that night. Edit. Wow, was not expecting so many people to see this and enjoy it. Thank you for the silver. I've almost had all good experiences. My worst was just recently. After about 5 messages, she gives me her number after we find out she's eating dinner at a place about a mile from me. She tells me to meet at bar down the street from me. Wow, that was easy, I say to myself. She gives me her ETA and is going to walk. But it's raining. She said she can't Uber because she doesn't have money on her card. Fair enough. But seemed sort of desperate. She shows up and is cute. But she's in sweats and a t-shirt with a backpack and is pretty wet. Apparently she was just at the gym before eating. Okay. We get to talking and she's just going a ducking mile a minute. There is no end to any subject. Anytime I talk and there is something she can tangentially relate to, she interrupts and is off. I suspect coke. She has a good southern accent and I ask her about it, but she was born/raised in Northern California. Okay. Then I find out she still lives with her ex-boyfriend who she left dinner with to come meet me. She's mad at him because he keeps doing coke. Okay, suspicion confirmed. I tell myself I'll finish my drink before leaving, but then she nonchalantly drops the "endom," followed by, "I'm not racist." I tell her I have to go to band practice. Then she orders an Uber somehow. Was dating a guy for over a year who had recently moved to an area 2 hours away. Got a text from an old friend who lived out in that area too. She sent me a screenshot of my boyfriend's Tinder profile. I confronted him and he tried to tell me he thought it was an app designed to make friends. And since he was new to the area, he thought it'd help him. I hardly believed him. But he wasn't super tech savvy, so I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Couple days later, another girl, who I hadn't talked to in years, messaged me on Instagram asking if me and my boyfriend were still together. I told her yes, and she admitted she'd matched with him on Tinder before realizing who he was. And he messaged her saying, "Wanna get drunk and watch a movie later?" He had the audacity to try and convince me that he didn't mean it like that, and was just trying to make friends. Yeah. So we match. Go for a meal. Small getting to know you dates. After a few weeks of talking and dating, we are gonna make the beasts with 2 backs. Enter ferret smell. I go to her place, and it's fairly well-kept middle-income apartment. I shower as I can smell something. Thinking it's me and wanting to be considerate. Oh no, it's ferret. The whole place reeks. I ignore it. She starts cooking dinner, and I'm pouring drinks and holding up a decent conversation. It's all just ferret at this point. So we eat and retire to her balcony. Overlooks a city park and nothing. We are 6 stories up, so it's very private. Keep drinking and we start getting physical. I eventually take her pants and panties off. I smell it. Ferret. I think no ducking way. Ignore it. We move back onto her bed. At this point it's all I'm thinking about. She is gorgeous, I mean 10/10. But her vag and her bed sheets and duck, everything smells like ferret. Still had 6, just don't give her head. Crazy thing is I never saw the ferret. Went on my one and only Tinder date years ago. We went to see Guardians of the Galaxy 1, and as soon as the lights dimmed he turned my face with his finger and began making out with me. I kept trying to break away, but he would just grab my face again. I got so uncomfortable that I went to the bathroom and got in my car and left. I ended up stopping at McDonald's on the way home and telling the drive-thru worker what happened. My friends were asleep and I had to tell someone. He ended up giving me free fries for my trouble. Told this before. But here comes a TLDR version of it. Got mashade with a girl. That mid-conversation started to seem to be a bit rude, yet she acknowledged that I was too kind and didn't deserve that she was being rude with me. And asked what pets I have, since she mentioned that had a few pets in her bio. I had a shitty day. And was getting tired and sleepy. And so in order to avoid falling asleep mid-conversation, I just said, "I'm sorry. I had a hard day and I am feeling tired. I am going to sleep. But if you want to, we can keep the conversation tomorrow morning." She freaked out and replied, "WTF? Are you serious? You know how many guys I am talking to right now?" And then unmatched me. Matched with a guy in Belgium when I was visiting. He seemed super nice. Picked me up from the train station. We went out for drinks and food. He came back to my hotel at the end of the day, and we hooked up. He was great at that too. He wanted to stay at the hotel, but I wasn't feeling well and wanted to feel sick alone. His offers of hanging out were sweet at first, but then I quickly realized he wanted to totally take over my time while I was there. He wanted to take me for breakfast, then lunch, then a movie, then go to museums, then dinner. I wanted to explore on my own. That's why I traveled alone in the first place. He settled for seeing me for dinner. By dinner he asked me if I'd like to come have dinner at his parents' and meet his family the next day, which gave me a mild stroke. I politely declined. Then I saw some adverts for flats in the city and was amazed at the affordable price and how pretty they were. He then comments that when I finally moved to Belgium, which I was going to in 6 months' time, that we should get one of these places and move in together. And get a pet and be a happy family. He went on to obsessively call me for the next 2 days. This all would have been wonderful if we were actually in a relationship for at least more than 2 months. But seeing as I'd known him for a little more than 24 hours, it was worrying. Okay, Cupid. But I figure it falls under the same umbrella. I went on a couple dates with this guy who was in a dinner show, think like medieval times, but with pirates. He invited me to see the show as a pre-date. Okay, cool. That part was kind of fun, even if it was a little awkward sitting alone and having my first experience of this guy being him swinging overhead in tights and an eye patch. Afterward we went next door, and within 5 minutes he was crying about his recently deceased grandmother. It honestly felt kind of like a performance too. But I wasn't going to be a big dig about someone's grandma. We went on the real date the next night to teppanyaki, which I hate. I don't like people watching me eat, or sitting communally with families with kids. Something was upsetting my belly that day, so I already wasn't feeling 100%. As we left, he proposed that we find a dark parking lot somewhere and duck in the car. I decline and go home. A few weeks later my sister tells me some rando hit on her via FB. Turns out it was him. And he had looked her up on mine. When I asked WTF, his response was, "Well, you said she was an acrobat, and we probably had more in common anyway." Had an amazing date, and hit off really well. But then she found out that she lives in the same area/connected condo block as I do, and got weirded out. Ignored me the whole weekend, then sent a long-ass text on Monday. Then started stalking me every morning/night when I'm done with work. Honestly not sure if she still does it, but I'm still alive, so that's cool. A man showed up that was about 15 years older than all his pics. So I was 24, but he was about 50. I wish I had the gonads to walk away the moment I saw him, but I'm just really shy and non-confrontational, so I went ahead with the date. It was so weird and uncomfortable, and I was super unattracted to him. Eventually I cut the date off short with an awkward hug and ignored any later texts. You have gonads of steel to carry that on. I tip my hat off to you. I was in several long relationships in a row with people I got to know as a friend first. Broke up. Went on Tinder. Went on a couple dates. Met a girl and had some chemistry. I walked to the bar. She drove. At the end of the night she offered me a ride home. We started making out in the car and I invited her in. At the time I rented from a friend who owned his own house. My friend was on the couch watching a movie, so I took her up to my room. I let her lead the way to my room. The first door on the right. She made a comment on a Star Wars poster we had hanging in the hallway, and I realized this might just be a sheet show. I tried to get to a bedside lamp and minimize the damage the overhead was going to do to my chances. Not fast enough. The look on her face as she looked at Marvel action figure along all the crown molding. The TIE Fighter X-Wing dog fight I had hanging over my desk. The Darth Vader mask I used as a hat rack. Framed comic books. Optimus Prime beating the sheet out of Skeletor. Oh, it was priceless. Duck, this is who I am. I tried to get back to making out. But she remembered a meeting she had the next day. On my next Tinder date I went to her house. Met up with a girl after talking for a few days, and when I picked her up everything seemed normal. Then 5 minutes into talking with her she told me that she didn't think she'd get laid tonight, and that she's glad I was there to help her out with no getting laid. Not all bad at all, but then she went on to tell me that her brother didn't think that she would either. When I asked her what she meant by that, she deadass said to me that she continuously ducks her brother's friends, and that her brother helps her duck his friends. That he literally goes out of his way to help his little sister get ducked by people that her brother knows or did know. It may be I overreacted, but that was weird as duck. I don't have a sister, but I definitely don't give a shit about my brother's sex life or would go out of my way to get him laid. Getting a call from the guy's sobbing wife. She also informed me that she was pregnant. I had literally no idea and said I didn't want to be involved. I blocked him on everything and deleted his number. She kept calling me from different numbers for weeks and crying on my voicemail, and he legit stalked me on social media for over a year. He'd make fake accounts and add me. And as soon as I blocked him, another one would pop up. Absolute disaster. Downloading the app itself was a low point I don't normally talk about. All online dating makes me feel that way. For some reason, as I was downloading the apps, all I could think about was, this is where my life is going. I deleted them months ago. Would rather be lonely and single than feel that worthless again. You'd honestly be surprised. I was on Tinder a couple months and found the love of my life. I know that's very, very rare, but it's not all bad you feel. Matched with this girl on Tinder. I get very few matches, and most don't reply, so my standard is very low. Matched this girl with an interesting bio but very few pictures, and even then, couldn't quite tell what she looked like. Either way, I'm happy she actually answered me. Have a decent conversation over a few days. She says she finishes work late, and she works near where I work. So I ask if she wants a lift home. We can make it like a prelude to a date. She seems to think it's a good idea. Tells me she lives near me. So it's all good. Comes that night. Late evening. Said she'd meet me by the train station. But she wasn't able to use her phone away from Wi-Fi, no credit, so she'll meet me by the station at this time. First massive hint or something being up, I ignore it. So I am waiting by the station. She's late. Well, technically doesn't show up. I wait 20 minutes. Get a message. I couldn't see you. So I took the train. I was the only car in the car park. Right by the entrance. Lights on. No way she didn't see me. But she agreed to turn back. So she comes back. I notice she is not at all what I expected. Well, she had no valid pictures to start with. She looked far younger than her stated age of 21. I was 23 at the time. She gets in the car. Seems nervous. Understandably. So try ask her about her day. How was work? What she does at work. She is very withdrawn. Why do you want to know? Doesn't tell me the exact address of where she lives. Just gives me very broad directions. Doesn't know the city at all. I think it's this way. I want to get rid of this girl. I am not liking her vibe at all. I felt like I was on Catch a Predator or something. So I firmly said to her to give me her address, otherwise I'm taking her to the nearest train station and leaving her there. She finally gives me the address. She lived nowhere near me, was opposite end of the city from me. She calls her mom and says she's on her way home. The rest of the drive was weird. She kept asking me if I do this often. If this was weird for me. Sorry she was so weird. I was nice. But I was very eager to get rid of this girl. I get to her address and she says, "Stop here." There is my mom there. Her mom was standing by the bus stop waiting for her. At this point I was expecting police to jump out the bushes with Chris Hansen. But it didn't happen. I went home and didn't use Tinder for a long time. This guy took me to his house to meet his mother with cancer on the first date. One of the most awkward moments of my life. On a positive note, I met my now fiancé on Tinder. I bet he was like, "Damn, the cancer move usually works." I met a guy on Tinder. Things were going well. We dated for a few months. And one night we're talking about how he wanted to go to school in Europe. Germany. Specifically. I have a US/UK dual citizenship. And pre-Brexit made the joke that we could get married and use my citizenship to move to Germany. A couple of months after that, he proposed that we do it for real. If the worst comes to worst, we could just get divorced. Right? I said yes. Fast forward another month. I was telling my mom that he couldn't come to our neighborhood 4th of July party because he was fishing with his brother. And she became convinced he was cheating on me. She started Googling and did find a picture of him from the 4th of July in a boat with his brother and also a fish. She also found his alternate online identity. He was, I guess still is, an alt-right pundit and a literal North Sea. I called him and left a very confused and angry voicemail and never heard from him again. No more Tinder for me after that. I drove 35 minutes to get him. We had planned to watch a movie at his place, but as soon as I got there I found out that his family smokes in the house. I'm super asthmatic, so I suggested we went to the movies. I drove us to the movies and suggested the Belko experiment. The dude had forgotten that his license was in the car that his mom was driving, so we had to pick another movie and sneak into the one we wanted to watch later. I paid for both of our tickets and the popcorn. For the rest of the night, I had to put up with his arrogance. I drove him home and gave him a quick kiss in hopes that I could leave like that. It was obvious that he wanted to have a make-out session, but after a while of my short kisses, he finally understood. The next day he texted me he had an "alright night, I picked you up, paid for your sheet, and had to spend 3 hours with your rude as WTF." Then he suggested we should just hook up cause he didn't really feel a connection. I immediately blocked him. The roommate to a girl I slept with a few months ago matched with me. I only looked at her first pic. I recognized her in the others. She asked to go on a date with me, of which I was a little hesitant. Then demanded that if we go on a date that we'd embark in a relationship. I said no thanks, and she thought I was joking, so she kept asking. Ended up blocking her. It was a weird experience. I'm on a 3-month, 10-match streak of girls not replying to either my first or second message to them. What a wonderful app this is. I've heard opening with a cheesy pickup line or joke is a good go-to. Might try Googling some and give that a shot. Might as well try out different things. It's my time to shine. 2 years ago, I matched with this cute girl on Tinder. We get to talking and pretty quickly she invites me over at around 11 p.m. to her place to do sex. I get there and I realize that she lives in her parents' basement. No worries, I can work with that. So we end up banging. The sex is actually pretty decent for a one-nighter. Then after all is done she says, "Hey, where's the condom?" We somehow lost the condom during the session and I didn't realize anything because I was focusing on the sex. I don't panic. I start looking in the sheets thinking it probably fell somewhere in the middle of things. Can't find it. We looked everywhere. Under the bed. Under the lamps. Even in the ducking pillows. Where is the condom? At this point we realize that there's only one explanation. It's inside her. The girl starts to panic. Goes to the bathroom twice to fish it out. Can't do it. Comes back with tears in her eyes and insists that I take her to the emergency room. So at 1 a.m. on a Tuesday, we sneak out to avoid the parents. And finally this girl and I arrived at the hospital. She looks super embarrassed and then tells me, "Oh, BTW. I work at this hospital." She was an ER receptionist, and every single person working in the ER that night knew her. Even the ducking janitor said hi to her when we got in. We ended waiting for 3 hours because a condom stuck in a vag is apparently not a priority in the Canadian health system. After all this wait, a doctor came out and told us to come back tomorrow because there were too many serious patients on that night. The girl is still pretty upset, and I had no idea what to do. So we ended up eating at McDonald's at like 4 a.m. I paid, of course. I finally dropped her off after this. Told her I was very sorry about the evening and basically went back home. The next day I text her to make sure the situation is resolved. She answers, "They got it out. I'm sorry about all this. I think I need therapy." I have never heard of her since. I had plenty of girls ghost me. And that sucked. But it happens. My worst was when I matched with a girl who was cute. And her profile said she was my age. We chatted a bit. And she revealed that her profile was off by a couple years. She was actually only 18. Not 20. I figured it was no big deal. She's still nice. Etc. I have this thing where I don't want to date someone more than a year older or younger than me. Why? But I do. I figured I would still go on the date and meet her. In case I was just being weird about her age. We schedule a date for a Friday night. And in the meantime, I get her Facebook, Instagram, etc. Her Tinder profile only had pictures of her face. And her Instagram and Facebook pictures showed that she was significantly heavier than her face made her look. It was enough that I wasn't anywhere near as attracted to her. But I didn't want to cancel the date because of that. On Tuesday, she says her dad doesn't want her going out with someone she doesn't know. I said that it is a bit strange that her dad won't let her, an 18-year-old, go on a date. But I tell her if it helps, he can look through my social media and that my dad is a police officer. And I gave her his name for some credibility. On Wednesday, she says it's actually her birthday on Friday. Cool. You're not quite as young as I thought. On Thursday, she confesses that she is actually 17 and was turning 18 on Friday. It all clicked. She was a minor. Her dad knew she was going out with a 20-year-old. and he did not like that. At that point, I pulled the plug and told her as politely that I didn't think we would work out past the first date anyways, and I would rather she spend time with her family on her birthday than me. Okay. Never spoke to her again. It gets better. Matched with a girl a few weeks later. And basically the same thing happens. Not her birthday. But after a couple days she says she is 17. Blah blah blah. Turns out the second girl is the first girl's friend. Apparently, they have a habit of going out with dudes anywhere from 20 to 30 years old. I somehow matched with both of them. Never once actually got a date from Tinder. And just stopped using it when I developed a crush on a coworker. Guy had super old pics on his profile. He wasn't exactly super cute, but I'm about looks, so when he asked if I wanted to go out we set up a time and place. I'm sitting in my car and I see a guy walking towards me, and I shit you not, he looked nothing like his pictures. He had a mustard, I hope, stain on his t-shirt. Just awful. We get inside for food and he talked so loud that I kept waiting for someone to tell him to keep it down. So embarrassing. Mid-date my mom calls me flipping out. Something was wrong with the plumbing in our house and she needed me to come home immediately to help her clean up the mess. I told him about it, and he didn't believe me, then got super angry when I had to leave. Went on a date solely because the guy had a ducked-up sense of humor. I told him, maybe, when he asked for the date, and my message sent at 9:11 p.m. He was a brown dude named Ahmed. He proceeded to make a 9/11 joke. I loved it, and changed my maybe to a definitely. No, I'm not completely innocent. I ignored some killer red flags. The dude was nice. But within 5 minutes of us meeting up on a street and walking to the bar together, he was saying he was a chronic weed smoker and making hints like, I have cash and I think I smell a dispensary nearby. Despite me making it very clear that I like to remain sober-minded on dates. I intended on having a beer with him. Maybe two. I played dumb to his hints and walked fast to the bar. He allowed me to stay in my 2-drink limit after some very normal small talk. We didn't have many common interests, but he was nice, talkative, and allowed me to ask many questions about him and his worldviews, which I enjoy. I like learning about people. He was also very, very funny. He just seemed like a kind dude trying to make it in a foreign country. I made it very clear to him that I, as a woman, like to pay for my half of a bill. I don't allow myself to be paid for until I'm in a committed relationship. At which point I'll pay for some full bills and let my partner take some full bills. This is so the first date feels evenly split and nobody's paying for anyone's time. He said he understood. He takes advantage of me going to the bar to get my second drink to flag a waitress over and take care of the full bill. I get why he thinks this was romantic. But I made myself very clear on my preferences. He said he understood. I was annoyed. But he said there was a cool place he wanted to show me and I agreed. On the premise that I could text a friend saying where we were going. He says it's a few minutes drive out of the city and gives me a general ballpark area. He drives me and it's a long drive. I update my friend that we are past the general area he had previously specified and I may need help. But I'm not sure yet. It's a lake and he wants to do stargazing. Alright. There are some other couples around. I feel safe-ish due to the bystander effect. I am at this point just talking to him, and he tries to kiss me. I turn my head away and say, "Oh, I'm flattered. But I'm not there yet. I'm just getting to know you." He proceeds to grill me on what's wrong with kissing. I say I just don't kiss on first dates. He says he understands. Then 5 minutes into a new conversation, kisses me on the cheek. I proceed to put him on blast. He is confused. He says that wasn't a kiss. I asked him what he would describe what he just did to my cheek with his lips. Would he not call that a kiss on the cheek? He says he would and he's sorry. At this point I hate him furiously and I just want to play it cool so he'll drive me home and not leave me in the middle of nowhere with no service. He suddenly grabs my face, forcibly kisses me, and then gives me some condescending, "See? That wasn't so bad. It's not a big deal." kind of response. I play it cool and casual, so he gives me a ride home. Thank God he does. Thank God I don't get any more hurt or violated than an unwanted kiss. On the way home, he gets me to plug in my phone into his AUX cable and play some music. Then gives me shit for my taste in music. All the while I feel obligated to lead him on just so he doesn't dump me out of the car. The dude seriously wanted a second date after that disaster. I hope someone has cut his lips off by now. My worst would have to be meeting this one guy. Super attractive, and things were going well for a bit until I had to leave the state for school. He calls me to say he has a child on the way, and I decide I'll be open-minded about it and still try to work things out. Mind you, I'm only 20/21. Anyways, I'm on break again and I begin to notice his parents give me the cold shoulder, and he even wanted me to sneak into his house. I took him out for his birthday where he was on his phone the entire time waiting for his paycheck to hit. I was paying, so it didn't even matter. Honestly, duck him. He made so many of my insecurities come out. I'm grateful to have stopped seeing him. On a more positive note, I met an amazing guy on there, and it was a wonderful 3-month fling. Sadly, things didn't work out, but I'm happy to have known him. Last summer I went on 3 dates in a row with different dudes who lied about being single and were either married or in long-term serious relationships. In every single instance I deduced it myself, and they all had the most whiny bullshit excuses. I'll appreciate her more if I see what else is out there. That kind of nonsense. But the one that absolutely took the cake was the guy who said he was extremely sloppy about cheating on her and had been doing it for years. So she had to know and was obviously okay with it. Where does she think I am right now? Why would I shower before hanging out with my guy friends? Wish I had thrown up on him. A guy on Tinder after a few dates was trying to convince me to marry him so he could get his green card. But like it got to the point where it was creepy. I told him no, that I was not interested, and he was trying to force me to do it. Talking about that we need to move in together. And how I would make him coffee, and how he loved me. And I was like WHOA. Like we knew each other less than a month. He wanted me to meet his family. Learn his language. Have his kid. Lose weight. And expected me to cut off my friends/Tinder. Like, dude, I am not interested. He even tried to guilt me, saying if he goes back to his country they will send him to war, and he will die. And I was like, I'm sorry? And when I would tell him that I was serious, and no means no, he would say, no, you will change your mind. No, you will be mine. So I ended up kicking him out of my car and never seen him since. Worst Tinder experience ever.